Hello, Kurt, class, whoever's watching, I don't know, I can't see. Uh, I'm Michael Eggert, and the filmmaker I'm talking about is Jimmy Chin. He makes films of amazing people doing amazing things, evidently. And he's a very big inspiration to me, not just because I want to enter the documentary sphere and because I'm a rock climber, but because he started his career very late in an unorthodox way, and I just feel like his story, it's a great way to show and to tell people, hey, you're not going to always have everything figured out, but if you just roll with like the successes life throws at you and keep going with that, you'll make it where you should be. And I'll elaborate on that further on into the presentation. Now, first up, who is Jimmy Chin? Well, he's an adventurer and a filmmaker. He actually was a professional rock climber, or semi-professional, before he started filmmaking. And so a lot of the films he makes are about these expeditions that he goes on, climbing these mountains and all sorts of other fun things. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this clip that just shows you the lengths this man goes to make his films.
Otherwise, it's a pretty comfortable place. We've got 24 square feet living area here. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it also doubles as the sleeping quarters. So think of like small homes type of design. Windproof, waterproof. Kind of a yurt design, circular, but half circle actually. Or maybe. We've got a kitchen over here. We've got our home entertainment system here, powered by solar. Try to be environmentally conscious. A lot of storage up high. Get everything out of the way, clip it up high. People really like that. We've got a water supply back here. Fresh glacial ice. And then bathroom. Here's Phil the bottle.
A lot you can take away from that clip. Obviously, you see he spends months on end climbing the sides of mountains, sleeping in this tent just bolted into the side of a cliff to get his films. But he hauls up all of that gear with him, and he's dedicated throughout these entire expeditions that he does, not just to the journey, but to his climbing partners and to the documentary as well. This man will literally go to the ends of the earth to get his movies made, and I think that's something not a lot of directors can really say they have done. People might say, oh, I'd go to the ends of the earth for my films. This man does it. He actually goes out and he does that. That is remarkable dedication and something that I think can serve to an inspiration as anyone really, regardless of what's doing. Even if you just want to be like a pie maker, just having that dedication, I find very inspirational. Here we have a quote from him. I think a lot of people are always like, oh, you're a climber, you're a photographer, you're so lucky, you're doing what you love. They're also the two things that drive me the most insane, because you're the most obsessed about them. They burn me as much as they exalt my kind of soul, right? And so, what he's really talking about here, this goes back to his dedication. He's so dedicated and so obsessed with these two things, climbing and photography through extension, is filmmaking, that yes, while he's very lucky to be making a living doing what he does, it's never easy for him. These things he does to make his films and achieve the things he has, they were never easy. He spent sleepless nights in the snow, low on food, fighting through frostbite just to tell these stories. Alright, and then when something goes wrong, he feels that pressure, he feels that anger, feels all the negative emotions that come throughout the entire film process, which is something, especially during editing season. I know when I'm editing my stuff, I get very frustrated with films, very burnt out, wondering, is the right path for me? But once you make it through and you're out and you get this finished film, this finished story you're telling, it's all worth it. And I think he really strikes at the chord of that feeling of frustration and lostlessness with your craft, but then also of pride in what you make and just the joy of making something. And so here we have a little clip that'll tell you a little bit the type of people he follows. We'll watch the clip and then I'll extrapolate on it.
It takes a peculiar type of person to be a cave diving explorer.
What makes someone want to be an explorer? I think it's 2 parts ego, 1 part curiosity, 1 part lack of confidence in yourself and the need to prove yourself. You know, maybe I was no good at footy and cricket, but at least I can cave dive quite well.
As you can see, it's the types of people he follows. He's looking for people who are out there, living life on the edge, going out, doing these crazy things, whether it's climbing the tallest mountain in Yosemite with no ropes, or diving to the depths of these caves where you need to have all this gear, even someone skiing off the edge of Mount Everest, which he was there filming with. He wants to tell stories of these people just pushing the limits in whatever they do. And it goes into that too, like, well, we weren't the most popular, we weren't the best at sports, and so that ties into Jimmy, I think, with his upbringing of Chinese immigrants, where there was a lot of pressure on him to have good grades and be this high achiever, but then he spent really the better part of his 20s just as a dirtbag, living out of his car, going and climbing these mountains, which always pushing himself to achieve and do something new, and that's carried over into his career. All of his documentary films are quite groundbreaking. He's taking these huge pieces of equipment out with him and crafting these remarkably professionally well shot films on just in the most extreme of circumstances, pushing the edge of what is capable for documentarians to do, while also capturing stories of people pushing the edge of what people can do and what people are able to achieve. He really likes to follow people that push boundaries. And so going into the people he works with, a huge element of that is trust and connection. This lady, forgive me, I cannot recall her name right now, but she is one of the co-founders of Patagonia. He recently did a documentary on her own. It's called Wildlife. Did a documentary about her and her husband, and what was so special and impactful about this, he's good friends with this lady, and as well as with Conrad Anker, one of his friends who is brought up in the documentary and who did die. We'll get into that a little bit here in this next quote. Yes. So this is him talking about his friend Conrad Anker, who was able to exhibit a little bit in that film. He was asked about what it was like being able to present his friend's film. It's very special. He invited me on my first National Geographic expeditions, which was a very pivotal moment in my career as a photographer and a visual storyteller. But he also taught me how to film the basics of shooting a scene, how to follow, who to follow, and how much to roll. It's been very gratifying to bring their story to life. And so this whole concept here of trust and connection, he was invited on to these expeditions by Conrad Anker because Conrad had trusted him already. They'd been well-established climbing partners. They'd been on expeditions before. These were two men who'd literally held their lives in each other's hands, and he does that with the vast majority of the subjects he shoots. There's this insane element of trust because with the nature of the types of things you're doing, you cannot follow someone to the tallest mountain in the world and make a movie about them if you don't trust that person and they don't trust you too. And it doesn't even need to be that extreme. If you're making a documentary and your subject has no trust in you that you will portray them in the right light, that you will do right by them, they will not open up to you. You will not get an authentic story. Even in fiction, right? Think of how much trust there is on set, how much connection you make. You need to connect with your DP and establish your vision with them. You need to connect and trust your actors too. follow through with their vision, and they need to trust in you to guide them and help them through that whole vision. Trust and connection are some of the cornerstones of filmmaking, and I think that's something that does not get talked about enough, which is something I love about Chin's work. He establishes these remarkable connections with everyone he films, and it shows on screen. So here we get into risk with every shot. A big element of why he does need that trust with all Zosh is there's risk in everything he does. This is a shot from Miru. We saw the clip of that where he was dangling from, like, this was one of his expedition partners who did get injured in an expedition. There's a real risk with just about everything that Jimmy goes out and shoots, that either him, someone on his crew, or someone that he's filming will get hurt, will die, because he is going out shooting these people, pushing the limits of what is capable for human beings to accomplish. And how does he manage that risk? How does he get used to it? One of the biggest examples of this is the film Free Solo, where Alex Honnold climbs El Capitan with no ropes. This man's climbing about a mile into the air. The only thing holding him to the wall are his own hands and feet. And so how do you figure out how to film someone doing that in a way that you're not going to risk sending them over the edge or making them worry and get self-conscious on camera, which results in them falling off? So here we have a quote from Chin about how he was prepping for all the work with Alex Honnold. They followed him for months before they filmed the ascent, not just so that Alex could practice, but so he could get used to climbing with all these cameras around him, and so they could figure out where to put the cameras on the route so that Alex would feel safe and that they would not get in his way. So the quote here is, but getting used to having a film crew shooting him on a long climb like that helped prepare his mindset for when we were shooting on El Cap. So his subject lives, this gets into exactly what we were talking about. If you pay attention here, you'll see two cameras positioned on the cliff. They weren't just put there because that's a good spot to put a camera. They were put there because that was the best place to put them to not only get the shots they wanted, but to keep Alex Honnold in a good state of mind so that he could achieve this to the best of his ability and reduce the risk of Alex falling to his death. Okay, right there, do you see them? So that close-up we just got of Alex, where he reaches over, that's this camera right here, and then there's another one right up here. There were men on ropes. Alex did this climb with ropes many dozens of times before he tried it without any ropes, so that he had to memorize like a dance. As he was doing that, Jimmy Chin and his film crew were dangling right there, figuring out the best angles to get these shots and where to position these cameras, and right there you see they have them strapped in, no people to distract Alex, just these cameras sitting there, observing out of the way, keeping everybody safe. Let's watch a little more. Yeah, you see that? That's the camera right here. Let me rewind. That camera right here, it's going to go right to this shot, this camera. And so that's the sort of mindfulness and the care that Jimmy Chin has for his subjects. He's not just like, oh, we're going to go out and see what happens. He does everything in his power to make sure that the people he's filming achieve what they set out to do and that they come back alive to their family. So now we'll get a little more into his own philosophy regarding his art and his work. I have so many incredible photographer friends who had a really noble vision for being an artist with their photography, but my whole entry into it was, if I take these photos and I sell them, I can make a little money so I can keep climbing. This goes into his origins as a filmmaker. He was 28 years old, never really touched a camera before in his life, just hanging out on a camping trip with a friend of his. His friend showed him how to take a camera, or how to take a picture on a camera. So Jimmy Chin took a photo of his friend sleeping on a portaledge. The friend goes and sells these photos to the North Face. Lo and behold, the only photo they bought was the one that Chin took. So Chin got $500 from that, and he didn't see it really as like this big life-changing thing. He was like, oh, if I take pictures of what I do, I can make money to keep doing what I love. And so he kept doing that and didn't really regard himself as an artist. But as the years have gone on and his talent as a photographer and his passion for filmmaking and visual storytelling developed, he's come to see himself as more of that. And to also realize that film wasn't his first passion. It was rock climbing. And through that and his pursuit of rock climbing, it guided him to this amazing Oscar-winning documentarian that he is today. Which is, I think, is something a lot of filmmakers need to do, is take a step back from their passion. Many people I know, myself included, film was one of our first passions. But if that's all you have, you can't necessarily make a film about anything else other than filmmaking, right? These stories we make and stories we tell are meant to reach out and connect with people. So we need to find inspiration and base things not in film, but just from our own lives and from things that are going on around us and our own passions. Make films about things that are important to us, and then the rest will just follow. And so here, this is a huge creative leap right here. This shot that titled Constant Creative Evolution, it's from his first ever narrative piece called Naya. So he's a documentary filmmaker, documentary photographer, shoots and records these not narrative, these non-fiction pieces about people going out and doing these remarkable things. Last year, him and his wife, who he directed, they challenged themselves. They shot a narrative piece filled with all these amazing, beautiful, artistic shots. It was based off the real story of Naya, who swam from Florida to Cuba when she was about 60, 70 years old, right? So it's based off a nonfiction piece, but the story itself, in this film, it's a narrative film. It follows the narrative structure. It's shot on sets with actors, not in the documentary way of making, but the fiction way of making films. And so he's gone from this dirtbag climber, didn't regard himself as an artist, just saw camera as a way to make money, to keep eating, to keep climbing, to now this remarkable visionary director. Right? His film is a journey that's guided him all along this. He's like about 51 years old now when he's doing this, directing his first narrative piece. It goes back to the whole point of the story that you might start later than others, you might wind up following a completely different path than you wound up, and that's okay, because if you just keep following that, wherever it takes you, it'll wind you up to something beautiful like this. So for that and all those reasons I've said before, Jimmy Chin is my favorite filmmaker and the most inspirational to me. I hope you were able to take away some of the lessons I've taken studying his work from this presentation. Thank you, and these are my sources. Alright, that's all I got. I'm gonna go cook a ribeye.